What is up, guys? It's DJ Rick Webb here, and it's the long-awaited case build part 2. I ordered all the cables, all the stuff here, and we're going to be doing the case build part 2. We're going to be installing the DBX drive rack, a wireless router, ports on the back of this thing, all kinds of good stuff. Let's get into it. Alright, so including the drive rack here, we have probably about $500 worth of stuff we're going to be putting into this SE case today. So let's go vlog style here, and I'm going to take you through everything we got on this table and what all we're using. Alright, so here's the current case as it is. I do have some more cables in here currently that are for the DBX drive rack and stuff because I was playing around with it. SE goes on top like you've seen before, Velcro's down. All that has not changed, but it's going to. So for this build, and there's going to be links to everything that I'm using in this build in the description below, along with links to where you can purchase it. We have Velcro that's left over from the last build, so we can Velcro down all this stuff. We have a 6-pack of 2-foot GLS audio XLR cables. We have a 6-pack of Syneco female end XLR connectors. We'll explain that later on. We have a 6-pack of 6-foot GLS audio XLR cables. We have a 1.5-foot right angle 1/4-inch jack that is going to replace the old XLR cable or 1/4-inch cable that was in here originally for the microphone. Just wanted some 1/4 inches, that way there's more clearance on the back side. From Lowe's, picked up some electrical tape. Don't need that much, but I'm going to be using that for gigs and stuff when I wrap cables. Lighter. We got some number 4 machine screws that are tapered on the back end. Those are going to be what holds in the ports, which are right here. We have a Neutrik plug that we're going to be installing. We're going to hook up the current surge protector that's in here. We're going to chop this cable and we're going to put a Neutrik plug in here, so that way all I have to do is plug in a Neutrik cable and plug that into the electrical source. Right here we have 8 GLS male XLR flush mounts. These are going to be going on the outside of the case. We're only going to be using 6. All kinds of tools. We'll go over tools later as we're going through what all you're going to need. Mostly just a drill, some wire cutters, wire snippers, and yeah. Then down here we got some soldering iron, and shrink wrap. That's going to be for getting all these connectors hooked up and everything. We have a cheap Netgear $25 wireless router that I've had laying around. I'm going to install this to work with the DBX drive rack PA2. The wireless router is going to work with the DBX drive rack PA2 here, which is the main reason why we're doing this build. The wireless router allows you to connect an iPod or an iPad or a phone to the DBX drive rack for complete wireless control of it. And we're using 6 ports because on the back of the drive rack we have 2 high outputs, 2 mid outputs, and 2 low outputs. More than likely I will probably never use the mid outputs, but they're there in case I need them. So if I ever have to do a big passive system or something like that, I can EQ everything from high, mids, and lows on the output range. I am looking into trying to use the mid outputs to control like a different set of speakers, such as like the mids would go to the Eons and the highs would go to the PRX, but that's the future. So as far as the first steps for this case build goes, I'm going to be working on drilling out the holes for all 6 of the GLS flush mounts XLRs. They're all going to be going down here on this end, all 6 of them together, spaced out nicely through there. And then on this end down here, we're going to be putting the Neutrik plug. So I'm going to go ahead and clear out most of the stuff that's on this table, make a little bit of room for drilling the holes into the case. Also going to take everything that's currently in the case out of the case completely. So basically we're starting from scratch again. And then I'm going to start measuring out distances to get all of these spaced out correctly on this case. As far as placement of these go, I'm literally going to put all 6 along this row right here. I'm going to space them out equally from the point of where the PRX label is to over here. We're going to space them out, and I'm going to be mounting them as low as possible to avoid interference with the actual back of the SD case, and also to keep my cables running nice and low underneath of everything. Alright, so now I got all of my hole markings marked out, and what I did was I based it off of the connectors. The connector is about 1.25 inches tall by 1 inch wide. So what I did was this bottom metal bar on the case, I went up 3/4 inch to draw a straight line across, and then at 1.5 inch markings across the bottom of the case here, I have all of those lined up. For this part, we're going to be drilling out holes in this case. You're going to need a drill, and then you are going to need at least a 1/4 inch bit. It really doesn't matter what bit you use. This is for the pilot hole. I'm going to be making a pilot hole to then use a 7/8 spade bit to drill out the actual hole that the plugs will sit into. Let's get started on some drilling. Well, everyone, a good side note for you guys when you're doing this project, make sure your drill's charged. Mine wasn't. Drill's charged. So now that the pilot hole is drilled, we're going to switch over to the spade bit, and we're going to drill the rest of the way through. Alright, so we got all of our holes drilled and we got a decent amount of mess, so I'm going to go get a vacuum and vacuum that out. But here, let me show you. So inside these holes, the actual rubber or foam coating on the inside here, I'm going to take a utility knife and clean up all of that. So I gave you guys like a nice little high-up view here. We're going to start with, all I put back in this was the wireless mic rack and the DBX rack, because those are the two things that are important here. The mic rack is not going to be moving. I actually moved it off from the edge a little bit. This is where we're going to be running the cables up to the outputs. We start with the DBX rack right here. All the 6 outputs are right here. I'm actually going to prop this up here in a second. When we actually install it, it's going to be propped up. But we're going to get the cables that are going to be running from here, and we're going to measure out and feed them through here. So this is a good point in the video to explain to you why I bought 6-foot GLS audio XLR cables. The reason for that is we're going to take the 6-foot cable here, we're going to take this, we're going to take this, and we're going to plug this into the back of the DBX rack, run up as much cord as I need, cut it, and then that's why I bought more end connectors. The end connectors, I'm going to be making like 4.5 foot long cables out of what's left of these. So that way I'm not just grabbing cable. Alright, so now as you see here, this is a better angle. We got the highs, the mids, and the low outputs of the DBX rack. And all of these cables right here, I ran them all along here. We will probably tie these down and get them tightened. And they all come out the ports right now where we're going to be cutting them off at lengths, and we're going to solder on our GLS audio end connectors onto the backs of these. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to eye up where I want to cut the cables, and I'm going to start cutting them, and then we're going to start soldering. Alright, so all the cables are now labeled 1 through 6. That's just how I'm ordering it. And now I can pull all these cables out and start soldering on the ends. Alrighty, so we've transferred over to a different table here, and we're going to be doing the soldering of the ends over here just because there's a little more space to work with. Some things you're going to need for this whole entire part of the process: you're going to need wire strippers. I have a couple of different things. Wire cutters. You're going to need a soldering iron. Heat shrink is not necessary, but it is recommended. It'll help the process, as you'll see here in a bit. Electrical tape. Of course, you're going to need your cables, and you're going to need your ends, and you're going to need a lighter if you're using the heat shrink. Okay, I'm going to switch to like an overhead view because I think it'll be easier for you guys to see what I'm doing. So as you guys can see here, this is the first cable I got. First thing I want to do is cut off that black outer shell. And then following that, we're going to take off all of the insulation on the inside of this cable. So let's get to that. All I'm using here is my crimpers. They have just a wider, they just have a wider gap right here for me to take off the excess wire. You're gonna want to take off maybe like ½ an inch of the actual wire, the coating on the outside, and then you'll see the copper and white insulation on the inside of the cable. You're literally just gonna pull that off to the side. The copper you're gonna want to save, so you're gonna want to wind the copper up into a little bit of a ball on the outside. Separate it from the cotton insulation. You'll also see a white and red wire in here as well, but separate your copper off to the side and kind of just twist that into another wire. That's going to be your neutral or your ground. Then the white stuff, you can literally just cut this off. All it is extra insulation when it's running the course of the cable. So I'm just going to cut that off with clippers. Scissors would also work really well for this. So as you guys can see here, I have separated out the red, the white, and the shielding, which is our neutral, and I also cut off all of the fabric insulation. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to strip down the white and red so that way we can solder this connection. I've been messing around a little bit looking at this stuff, and I also looked up a wiring diagram to understand the pins. Now everything on the backs of the GLS flush mounts are labeled with the pins of 1, 2, and 3. And if you look on the ends of a lot of your XLRs, they also have labels of the pins 1, 2, and 3 as well. So basically these colors right here, GLS uses white, red, and shielding. And according to the diagram, the shielding is going to go to pin 1. The white is going to go to the pin 3, and the red is going to go to pin 2. This whole entire soldering process is probably what is going to take you the longest amount of time for this whole entire project, but it also is probably one of the most crucial things as all of your audio connections go through this. So I got some heat shrink wrap here. I'm going to cut the length, slide over this. That's what I'm going to use to like secure over all these connections. Here's the big roll of solder I'm using, guys. Just cut off a little bit to make my life a little easier while I'm doing this. And I'm gonna zoom in here so you guys can watch me solder this connection on. Okay, so I went ahead and tinned all these. Just a little side note, I am not in any way that great at soldering. I just picked it up as a hobby. Never really went to any classes. Alright, so I finished up all those connections. I'm just going to wrap a little bit of electrical tape around the connections so that way they are separated. And then we're going to use heat shrink to secure it all together. And then we're going to test it to verify it works. A little bit of heat shrink wrap there and we're all good to go now. So to test out all the cables, I hooked up just this makeshift, plugged in the SZ, plugged in my phone jack here for audio, and just taking the cable out of the SZ, plugging it in here. You go through, you wiggle it a bit, wiggle it around, and I have it plugged into an XLR like it would be, and running it to a speaker, just listening if we hear any distortion, any issues with the sound, any like up and downs, highs and lows, and just verify that it sounds perfect. And this one checks out, all good. Time to move on to cable 2. Right, Todd? Cable 2?
I don't freaking like you.
soldering process actually takes a really long time. So I've done 2 now, and it's probably been at least a half an hour. So I'm gonna spare you guys the misery of watching me solder, and we're just gonna fast forward to when I have them all soldered. Alrighty, so about 2 hours later, I have the 6th and final cable all soldered up and ready to go. So now we can move back over to the SD case and let's install all the plugs. Okay, so as I've been soldering up all of these leads, I've been running them back through the holes just so I can keep track of the numbers. So now we're gonna feed all the leads through up to the point we're gonna push the actual plugs in. On these plugs, the latch that the plugs plug into, I'm gonna put it up. I want the latch on top. You could also put it on bottom, it doesn't really matter. And then I also have machine screws that I'm gonna be getting to put these in with. So first I'm gonna feed all these wires through and get it all set up like that. Okay, now I have all of them loosely laid in here. They're gonna need to be screwed in, obviously. And the cable lengths seem to be perfectly fine to make it all the way around. As I said, I labeled all these for when we were soldering them up. So screw-wise, I picked up 2 different size screws at Lowe's because I wasn't sure what size to use. I have number 4 1/2 inch and number 4 3/8 inch. These are flat Phillips. They're beveled on the back end so that they sit flush along with the metal. After looking at the wood's a 1/2 inch, and the plugs themselves will bring the screws out a little bit, so I'm going to be going with the 1/2 inch number 4 screws. Alrighty, so now that the main part of this is complete, well, basically the hard part of getting all 6 of those hooked up, we still have the Neutrik plug to hook up. Now, I'm not really sure where I want to place the Neutrik plug in this, and also I don't actually have my Neutrik cable yet. That is on back order. It's hopefully going to be here Monday or Tuesday. It's currently Saturday. It's Saturday right now. So I have a couple days until my actual Neutrik cable gets here. And I also don't really know how I want to lay out everything in the base of this. I'm not even sure if I want the microphone jack to be there, but I do want the DBX rack where it's at right now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set you guys up in some sort of high position where you guys can see, and I'm going to do a time lapse as I lay out where I want things to be in the case, and then we're going to cable everything, and then we will determine where we're going to put the Neutrik plug, and then we'll get around to actually splicing the current power strip that's in this and hooking that up to the Neutrik plug. So basically, in a summary here, I'm going to assemble the case as is, get everything where I want it, make sure everything works, and then I'm going to install the Neutrik plug. Alrighty, so as you can see, I did a little bit more than my camera ran out of battery, but got a new battery in. This is kind of the layout we're looking at right now. So I still left this spot open, that way my phone charger's here, I can tuck my phone still underneath the case. The DBX rack is here all hooked up, and it's even propped up, if you guys can see there, it's propped up on an angle. Probably can see it better right there. I propped it up with foam spacers underneath of this, Velcroed it all together. This thing is not going anywhere. So on the back of the DBX rack here we have the power input, the Ethernet that goes over to the router, you'll see in a second. 1 through 6 on the outputs that you just saw me install. And then these are the 2 inputs. These are just the 2-foot GLS audio cables. Those are just dangling back here waiting to be plugged into the SZ. We also have the microphone for the wireless mics that gets plugged in right here for the SZ. It's the throughput so that both wireless mics run on the 1/4 inch jack. Power for that. Over here we got the Netgear router. The Ethernet port plugs in here for the wireless router communication to the iPad for the DBX rack. Antenna, all the power situation is taken care of. Everything is plugged in. I'm using the side rail here, this little slot underneath the SZ to hold the extra slack from the DBX rack power cable and the SZ power cable. We have a USB port right here for the SZ. We have the power, which is actually tucked down in a little bit right now, for the back of the SZ as well right here. Up here is the USB cable that plugs into my laptop. And then over here we have the power supply for the laptop as well, built into the SZ case like you guys saw in the first build. Everything you guys see is completely Velcro down in its final home. Everything is perfectly fine. There's only one last modification to do, but first I'm going to plug in the SZ, get everything hooked up on top of the SZ and make sure everything works. Like I said, because I do not have the Neutrik's cable here to power the whole thing. So to make things easier, I'm not going to install it yet. I'm going to plug it in like it is, like the power strip is originally. We're going to make sure everything works, everything's good to go, and then I will go ahead and drill the hole and splice in the Neutrik's plug for the power cable, and then on Monday, the cable and everything will work perfectly fine. Alright, so everything's plugged in. Let's turn everything back on. Make sure we're all working. Beautiful. You can't stop the tears from falling. So now everything's hooked up, I can actually explain to you guys what that wireless router, which is back underneath there, does for the DBX rack. So right here's my iPad. All I had to do was connect to that wireless router. The wireless router does not need internet. All I had to do is connect to it and then open up the DBX Drive Rack app, and then I have full control of it. So if the music was playing right here, these are those lights you guys saw down here. It'll show me it live on here. You can set up all your speakers. Currently I just have the 2 speakers set up right now. You have crossover options when you do actual sub speakers, mids such as that. You can set limiters. There's input delay. There's also individual input delay for each one of the outputs. Parametric EQs for each one of the outputs. There's subharmonic synth as well. And then also there's the total EQ as well at the beginning. The graphical EQ, there's an auto EQ if you use the built-in RTA mic, which I probably will not be doing. There's advanced feedback suppression when you're running microphones, so you set that up with your microphones and you can run advanced feedback suppression. All kinds of very fancy stuff, which you guys will see in a future video when I do a full review of the DBX Drive Rack. The DBX Rack's going to help audio. It's the final piece of the audio package that's going to just take it to the next level. Not to mention the new speakers that are probably coming. They're not ordered yet, but I have put in quotes for some new speakers, and within the next month or so, you might be seeing some new speakers coming to the channel. So now it's time to put in the Neutrik's plug for this. Like I said, I do not have the cable, so I won't be able to test if it works. I'll have to wait until Monday for that. I've already measured out where I want this to be at. I'm gonna go ahead and drill this hole. Alright, so as you guys saw, the hole's completely done, and this fits nicely in here, really snug compared to the other ones. Very snug fit. So now I've got to chop the cable off. So now we got the wire completely stripped. I went ahead and put a piece of heat shrink on the cable for when we get it completely clamped up. We have the green ground, the white neutral, and the black hot lead here, which will hook up to the according connectors on the back of the Neutrik's plug. There's an L over here on the left for our lead, or our hot lead, and then we have an N over here for the neutral and the ground symbol on the bottom. We're going to be using connectors, crimp connectors basically. Just they slide on easily over these leads on the back of the Neutrik's plug. All we have to do is crimp down the cables onto these. So this is going to make life a lot easier. There's absolutely no soldering involved in this plug process at all. So I'm gonna get started on that. Alright, so I got crimp connectors on all these. Now all I have to do is hook them up to the according plugs. So let's do that now. Alright, so as you can see, all the connectors are on there, perfectly set. Now I'm gonna heat shrink this around here. I'm gonna heat shrink this up on this part. Just heat shrink it, that way it's nice, clean cable look. And then I'm gonna wrap electrical tape around this portion of it because I do not have heat shrink that is like an inch big. As you can see here, everything's all in. Now all I gotta do is screw this in and we're practically done. Screw this back in, plug everything back in, put it all back together, and the case is done. Well guys, that's all for case build part 2. I don't believe we're going to be doing a part 3. The only way I'm probably going to do a part 3 is if I install like a power conditioner. But this was the main plan when I thought about, hey, I want to actually put some stuff into this case. I want to build it out, make it sweet, put in wireless microphone racks, a DBX rack, make it all self-contained, ports on the outside. Like I talked about in case build 1, this was the main goal for the case build. And now it is finally completely done. So we put in the last $500 worth of parts into this, mainly being just the DBX rack because that's like almost $300. So everything is completely done now. And I am super, super excited to actually get to go out to a gig and use all this. Like I want to go do a big prom, a big homecoming where I can utilize the individual controls of the highs, the mids, the lows, and EQ everything properly, set all my limiters properly, the crossovers, and just really utilize this to its full potential. Like I said, everything that I used in this part of the case build is linked in the description below. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns on the whole entire case build, if you have any questions, any tips for anything I can add to it, maybe to make it even cooler, easier to use, let me know in the comments section down below. I also want to touch quickly right now on basically everything that's going on right now. We're only about 100 subscribers away at this point from hitting 5K, which is just mind-blowing. There's going to be a big video, a big celebration video for 5K. It's going to be a big milestone for this channel. But along with that, I'm also very close to hitting 1,000 subscribers on Instagram. I'm going to be doing an Instagram giveaway when we hit 1,000 subscribers on Instagram, so go follow me up on Instagram. Also, I'll just link down here. This is also my Snapchat. If you guys are following me on Snapchat, that is like my social media platform. I am on Snapchat. I Snapchat daily. I Snapchat everything I'm doing. I Snapchat this build when I was doing it. So like, you got a preview of the whole entire build. I Snapchat my life. So like, if you want to know what's going on and everything, Snapchat's where to hit me up. There hasn't been a lot of videos lately. That's mostly because I went on a decent vacation for 4th of July. Went out to the beach, spent a good time out there. If you guys are following me on Snapchat or Instagram, you guys saw I've been out on vacation. That's why there wasn't really many videos. If you want to check out on Instagram, I made like a cool little video reel to go with the whole entire thing, like some drone footage and stuff I shot out at the beach. Pretty sick video. But above all that, guys, if you like this case build, you liked it, please give me a big thumbs up on this video. It helps out a lot. If you're not already part of that almost 5,000 subscribers, hit that subscribe button, join this big amazing community we got here on this channel. We're definitely growing at a very strong rate here on this channel, and I am just thrilled to bring my DJ knowledge to you guys and bring my whole entire DJ experience and growth to YouTube, bringing you guys along for the ride. And on that note, guys, my name is DJ Rick Webb. Like always, keep them records spinning, and I will see you guys next time. Peace. Bam.